You hear me? Yes, my mic is on. Good afternoon. Oh, that's too soon. Oh, okay. There, it's working now. So good afternoon, everybody. I'm happy to be here. The good news is this is the last session, so you can all run to lunch or whatever else you have to do very soon. I'm going to be as quick as I possibly can, I promise. How many people in the audience, raise your hand, know the people behind me on the screen? Most of you, as expected, know that these are some of the biggest business leaders in the world today, right? Obviously. Now, in addition to being a great business leader, we follow their every move on social media, right? We pay attention to what they're doing and what they're saying, right? They're effectively some of the most impactful people, individuals on the world today, and there's hundreds, if not millions of them in the world. Billionaire, CEO, business owners. And that's why I believe, ladies and gentlemen, that the real people running the world today, and maybe you agree, maybe you don't, the real people running the world today are businesses, are corporations. Corporations are defining what we eat, where we work, how long we work, sometimes where we get married, how we move around. So much of our life is actually controlled and defined by corporations. And so my first statement that I'd like to make today is that business is greater than politics. Business is greater than government. The most impactful organizations in the world are not governments anymore. They're businesses. And so if we're looking to impact the world, if we're looking to change the world, then it's at businesses that we should be looking at and not governments. So in this new corporate world order, which by the way, is not a new phenomenon. Some of you may be familiar with a very old corporation called the East India Tea Company. Okay, in the 1800s, the East India Tea Company controlled 50% of global trade, one company. That company grew to represent the economic and military interests of an empire and eventually ruled over Cyprus and many of our neighboring countries, the British Empire. So in this new world order, our world, our universe, our planet, our health are all suffering. Why? Why do you think with the rise of corporations, our world has gone down? Why is there an inverse relationship? Well, because corporations were created with one aim, to maximize shareholder value only. If you go to the top business schools, MIT, Harvard, NYU, where I went to school, and you look at what they're teaching in those schools. What are bankers thinking? What are they thinking? The same thing. What is Wall Street asking for? Constant growth in returns, constant maximization of shareholder value. As a result, we have 5 trillion pieces of plastic floating in our oceans. We have oil and gas pipelines being built over indigenous lands. The air we breathe most of the day when we're sitting in the office, it comes from air conditioners. Our light is artificial lighting. Our food supply chain is industrialized, and it's unhealthy, and it's full of chemicals and hormones, and it's harming us every day. Okay? Now, don't get me wrong. Companies need to generate profits, okay? Companies should generate profits. That's why they were created. But with great responsibility, with great impact comes great responsibility as well. So the status quo, and this is my next statement that I'd like to, the status quo, if we keep going the way we are, we're going to destroy the planet, and we're going to destroy our future as well, okay? Now the billionaires have a solution. What are the billionaires doing? They're aware that the planet is being destroyed. What are a few of them doing? They're going to space. Exactly. They're flying to space, they're exploring Mars, the moon, or whatever else. For those of us who are going to be staying here, right, we have to find a solution that is more long-term. But there is some good news. I don't want to be Mr. Gloom, Dr. Gloom, or Dr. Doom, as they call him. There is good news. Markets are shifting, right? Consumers are becoming more and more educated. Millennials are taking control of the world in which we live. Over the next 50 or so years, $60 trillion of wealth, the largest transfer of wealth in modern history, will pass from one generation to the next. And millennials will suddenly control the decisions in the boardroom, not just in the supermarket. And so what you will see there is people who ask for ethical supply chains, people who ask for healthier products, for a better relationship with suppliers and companies that supply the products that they use. And this is going to be a major, major change. AC Nielsen, for example, the latest data from AC Nielsen suggests that 70% of millennials will pay more for products that they perceive to be ethical, to be clean with regards to the environment, to be from a supply chain that can be traced and tracked. So, this basically means that markets are now supporting the idea that a company can and should consider how or where its products come from, right? But in addition, the other good news is global markets are doing the same thing. So for the large companies that have started incorporating sustainability into their practices, they have seen a premium on stock markets, a share price trading premium, which means that global markets, some of them, are also recognizing that the companies that do this will be more competitive in the future, will make more money. And so suddenly now, with this new market shift, doing good is actually creating shareholder value. Going back to that initial concept I talked to you about, which is what is the purpose of business that is taught across business schools, maximizing shareholder value. Well, now suddenly, with the rise of the millennials and the change in market forces, businesses are actually, that are doing good, are generating market value. Everybody's familiar with the PLT. McDonald's in 2019 launched a vegan burger. The biggest meat and burger company in the world launched a plant-based burger. That would have been unimaginable 10 years ago. Corporations are catching on, but they're slow. They're way too slow. It took McDonald's maybe 10 years to launch this thing right here. Doesn't seem that hard, right? Other companies are doing the same and they're following suit, but large companies are like large ships. It's very hard to move them. Once they're heading in a certain direction and their entire organization is facing that direction, the supply chains and the suppliers and the customers, it's so hard to change course, right? It takes a lot of effort. So corporations, although they are making progress, cannot be relied on to save us. They'll make progress. They'll definitely do their part, but they won't save us, okay? There must be another part to this solution, right? And for me, that part is entrepreneurship, right? Entrepreneurship is fast, it's smaller, it's more nimble, it can disrupt existing industries, it can move in a way that a large corporation or a large ship cannot, and it can launch successfully things that you would never have seen from the large corporations. Unfortunately, it's not taught in universities, right? It's difficult to learn. How do you learn entrepreneurship? Why do I have a bicycle here? Because you can't really read about entrepreneurship in a book, just like you can't read about riding a bicycle in a book. You have to jump on the bicycle and you have to fall off 2 or 3 times, and then you'll learn how to ride a bicycle. And entrepreneurship is the same, okay? Whole Foods Market is a prime example of a company that came into a very established industry where everybody thought they already knew everything and there was nothing new to be done, and completely turned it upside down. Okay? Whole Foods Market is an example of what an entrepreneur can do to an existing industry, right? When it thinks with the mindset that I'm talking about, the impact mindset, right? The millennial mindset. What's another example of a company that did this very successfully and has now become huge? Tesla, exactly. So Tesla could never have existed, right, in a normal situation because there were already huge car companies dominating markets. If you had asked a business professor or a consultant or a strategy expert, like if Elon Musk had asked at the time, should I launch Tesla now, they would have said, no way. Looking at Michael Porter's 5 forces, doing a market assessment, there's no room for you in the market. There's already large market leaders. You're never going to catch up. But why was he able to catch up so fast? Tesla is now a household name because of the movement, right? The global movement that I'm talking about, which is the impact movement, the millennial impact movement. My name is Karim Samra, trying to go as quickly as I can. Why am I telling you all of this? I mean, why does it matter? Well, because I decided to do something about this. Okay, I decided after working for many years in large multinationals, I tried NGOs as well. I decided to do something and become part of the change. And I founded an organization called Changelabs. Changelabs, obviously, because I want to see change happen. And I chose entrepreneurship as the vehicle for change. I talked to you guys about corporations as one vehicle. They're going to do it. McDonald's, right? They're going to do it. Nestle is going to change. All the big companies will definitely change. But the avenue that I chose was entrepreneurship. And we believe entrepreneurship can change the world is our tagline at Changelabs. And we run basically entrepreneurship programs in the Middle East and Africa that help young people launch and scale their startups. Okay? An example would be our Scale Up to Green program in Egypt, where we have, where do you want me to be? Sorry, right here, there's like only one, there's a huge stage. I love moving around, but they want me to stand right here. Okay. So Scale Up to Green is a company that is a program we're running in Egypt. An example of a company that came out of that program is Baramoda, which is turning the waste from sugar factories into organic fertilizer. Higher yields than chemical fertilizers. That's the key here. So this is an example of where doing good actually makes you more money. And that's what we're going after, okay? Another program we did was the Blockchain Bootcamp in the Middle East with the Stacks Foundation out of the US to teach entrepreneurs how to code in blockchain, okay? And how to make, give more opportunities for youth through blockchain. We did a Champions of Change financial inclusion program in Jordan. We have a company there called Tenda that is helping people access financing online that don't have bank accounts, and that is helping people save as well as a community, the old way, the old-fashioned way, but using technology. We have a project in Lebanon called Scale Up for Impact, which is targeting migrants and refugees, helping them launch startups, helping them, helping make products and services that target migrants and refugees. I launched Beatbox Design, which is a digital design agency to help young startups pick up, you know, in the beginning, especially when they don't have a lot of budget. I'm launching in partnership with a company here in Nicosia called Unicaf, a fintech platform that's going to allow Middle East and African students to get financing for the first time for their degrees abroad, for their education. So right now, if you're living in the Middle East and you want to study abroad, you have to get a loan from abroad, which is often difficult to get if you don't have a passport. This platform will allow you to get a loan locally and then study abroad. So we're launching that in a couple months in partnership with a Cyprus company called Unicaf. Very cool company. You should check it out if you don't know it. It's Goldman Sachs funded, you know, $30 million a few years ago from Goldman Sachs, one of the most successful companies in Cyprus. And of course, I'm involved as well in Ambo Ventures, which is a VC fund investing in Africa. We have $50 million that we're deploying only in green economy companies that are very early stage, seed stage. So again, I'm doing everything I can to deliver on my thesis, which I discussed in the beginning, the first few slides, that impact is kind of taking over and it's the future. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That's it for me for today. I think there's a quick...
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So actually, we'll have a small interview.
Okay.
They'll help us like now. We'll ask you a few questions. If you want to ask Mr. Karim any questions, feel free to go on the application. I said it many times already. I know you know how to do it. Feel free to ask any questions.
How's it going?
Good, thank God.
Thanks for having me. We're almost done.
Yeah. I know people, you're excited that we'll be finishing soon, and you'll be able like to go and have your lunch.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for being here, by the way. I know this is like the last session of 3 days, so I'm assuming the people we have here are like the real fighters.
Yeah, that is true.
Thank you guys for being fighters and for staying with us until the end like this. Yes, give yourselves a round of applause, yes.
So, one of the first things you said is business is greater than governments.
Yes.
And we can see that like big corporations nowadays, they do control a lot of money, and at the same time, they have a lot of data that the governments, they don't have. Except from the second fact that you said that in the next couple of years, like more millennials, they will be on the boards of these like companies or upcoming companies. Is there anything else that we can do as individuals, like to impact these decisions or these behaviors that these big companies have at the moment?
Yeah, so obviously the most important thing you can do as individuals, or we can all do, is to be careful how and where we spend our money. I mean, that's the number one thing you can do. right? Don't spend your money on products and services that are polluting the environment. Ask the questions, the difficult questions. Read the ingredients when you're buying stuff. You'll find a list of chemicals that you probably can't pronounce, and if you do, put that down and go find something else. Ask for something else. Go to your store and ask for something different. So in everything that you do, that we do, right, we should be careful what the source of it is. We should understand, what exactly did it take to make this thing that I'm about to buy, right? I mean, I think that kind of decision as a consumer is your biggest weapon right now, believe it or not. And of course, you can do social media and you can,
So my next question, that is maybe a bit personal question before we go to the questions that they started coming in. You decided at some point to give up on your main career, like working for big companies, and started to go into an area that you're actually helping more people, like to impact the community and to help people. But there are a lot of people that they have great ideas, but they don't necessarily have the knowledge on how to do it. How did you find like that inner power to give up on the certainty and start doing something that it was, I assume, a bit different?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and it's a very personal question because, for me, I was never going to do this. I was working on Wall Street at Barclays Capital in Manhattan, and I was, doing my thing. I was struggling, because the life is a difficult life, but I had and I was thinking about what I was going to do and how I could change it, but I had a very important personal event that happened in my life. I lost somebody that was very close to me, and that made me literally rethink everything, And in the last days of that person's life, I had to run back and forth between the office and the home to be able to see that person, right? I wasn't even given enough time off to spend some time with that person in her last days of life, and that made me say, what the hell am I doing, and is any of this even worth it? And so that was my push. Like, I needed a slap, so I got slapped.
Thank you very much for opening up and saying that.
Yeah.
So let's see some of the questions that they start coming in. What is your opinion about greenwashed companies? Pericles asked.
Greenwashed?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think obviously the people who are doing, making changes, the big corporations that are trying to make changes, should make real changes, and not. This is what he's referring to, greenwash, right? Should make real changes and not, try to greenwash their products or services. I think it's a trend because they realize that the market is shifting, and so they're doing stuff like this all the time. But you, as a consumer, have to be educated. You have to read the ingredients, like I said. You have to do your homework. And you have to know when someone's being honest or not. And it's very easy to greenwash, obviously. It's much harder to because for a company like a consumer goods company to change the nature of one of their products, they have to change an entire supply chain. It takes a lot. It's expensive. It's not a cheap thing. There is a long-term reward, I believe, but it takes investment up front. And so what you'll see a lot of is greenwashing at first. Yes.
You did mention before in your presentation about the McDonald's PLT.
Yeah.
I actually found it a bit funny that in Cyprus we do not have that burger, even though it was it appeared in other countries. So I believe that there are countries that we are developing, but maybe in some areas we're not developing as fast as some other areas. So
yeah, it depends on the market as well. The Cyprus market is pretty traditional. Cyprus is an economy that's more traditional. Cyprus is spoiled, not in a bad way, in a good way, because everything is already organic and natural in Cyprus, because that's how it is. Like when you walk out the door and you get a sheep or whatever, and so people just don't understand that in cities, in more developed markets, that's been taken away completely. It doesn't exist, right? So we're like sitting here in Cyprus. And we're not looking, I think we're not understanding the gravity of the situation, the cost of what we might actually lose. That's why I'm here. Why am I here in Cyprus and not in New York or Boston or Switzerland or anywhere else? Because of this thing, this magic that's still here in Cyprus, right? This traditional sense where everything, you're still close to your earth, you're still close to your food, right? Your products are still coming from near. So it's easy to kind of reintegrate as a human being in nature in Cyprus. Abroad, that's lost. The corporations own it.
Of course. So, Katerina asks, do you think big corporation won't be able to be competitive in the future and will be replaced with smaller businesses that can change their course faster?
B Corps?
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
so I think that, like, look, any corporation can be an impact corporation. I don't think you need to be a B Corp. It doesn't matter. You can be an LLC, you can be a joint stock company. Like, it's all about how you decide to run your company. So, yeah, a B Corp is nice as a structure because you get to, form the company with that intentionality from the beginning that this is going to be an impact company. And B Corps have certain regulations and requirements around reporting that help you do that. But any LLC, any joint stock company can effectively be improving outcomes for customer and community while generating a profit. Like the nice thing about like this new movement that's taking over is that it doesn't change the fundamental structure of a company. It lets you maximize shareholder value, but because now the markets have shifted. 15 years ago, maybe you had to take more risk, right? It didn't let you maximize shareholder value. You had to lose money to do good. Now that the markets have shifted and millennials are taking over, but on the contrary, you will make more money. You just have to be smart and see the change.
Yeah, at the same time, like we can see one of the biggest companies like 15, 20 years ago in the mobile sector, that was Nokia, they were not able to adapt into the new era. So at the end of the day, it did cost them like a lot of business, and newcomers, like, okay, maybe not smaller companies, at the end of the day, they managed to come in and become like wholesale names. So another question, are you looking for cooperations with EU startup and investors? And are you also getting active here in Cyprus?
Yeah, so I would love to be more active in Cyprus. I think there's a lot of potential here for activity, whether it's boot camps, accelerators, etc. Like the ecosystem needs a bit of fire. And I want to congratulate obviously Stylianos and Dusan and the Reflect guys for kind of doing this. This is an initial spark for me, which is amazing, but we need to take this spark and take it to the next level and turn it into a real ecosystem in Cyprus. Yeah, absolutely interested in Europe and in Cyprus.
We're very grateful to attract like people like you that you have been doing it abroad and you're willing to come here and help us like to grow as a startup community and as a business.
Thank you.
So we'll go to the next question, which is, what advice would you give to young people that want to make a change in this world but feel lost?
So, follow your heart as much as possible. Don't follow what people tell you to do. If you're doing what everybody's telling you to do, that's the first sign that something's off. Okay, so you want to do what your heart is telling you. Usually, people will be disappointed by your choices. Okay, you will disappoint a few people when you make your choices as a young person. If you're not taking enough risk. You're not doing things differently enough, right? So I would encourage everybody to take the road less traveled, to not follow, the very structured path that everybody follows, that your parents probably want you to follow. I'm sorry about the parents that are in the audience. But you have to go and learn, and you have to go and fail, and you have to go, and the world is changing. So your parents might not know what the world of today is like relative to the world they were in. And so you have to have that courage.
Actually, that's great advice. Thank you very much for that. And we'll go to our last question, which is, what top 3 industries, areas, do you think will be the change makers for impact business, and we should take them more into consideration?
So look, financial services is a big one, obviously. Energy and sort of green energy is another big one. And I would say agri-tech is the third one for me. Agricultural technology and agriculture, because food is everything, guys. What we eat, right, has such a huge impact on us. Look at us, we tax tobacco. Tobacco is heavily taxed here in Cyprus. I know, I'm a big shisha smoker. So tobacco is heavily taxed here in Cyprus, yet we open the floodgates for sugar and highly processed foods full of hormones and antibiotics and chemicals. That's a much bigger killer, guys. It's a much bigger killer. But okay, so see, this is not logical, right? So we just have to be careful.
Mr. Karim, thank you very much for your time and for all the knowledge that you shared with us.
Thank you.
A big round of applause.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your interview. Thank you. Thanks.